Hello everybody, this is TipTop MTG here today with another Magic the Gathering video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over all of the spoilers that came out today for Jumpstart. But before we get into that, I have to talk about a couple things. First off, what is Jumpstart? Jumpstart is essentially a new product kind for Magic the Gathering, where you open up two boosters, shuffle them together, and you have a complete deck. But they're not just random cards. They are almost like opening up. It's like if you were to buy a pack and it was a random Planeswalker deck that you were supposed to mix with another random Planeswalker deck. So the cards are in pre-assembled little mini decks, but you don't know what you get until after you buy it. Now that's what Jumpstart is. Now there's one more thing, and I've started every video with that little explanation. It's gotten better as I've gone on, but there's something I need to talk about. Spoilers for Jumpstart have been a nightmare. They have done it in such a way that certain people are revealing certain groups of cards, and most people are revealing about one deck. Now, each person is doing it differently. Some people are only reviewing the new cards and skipping the Core Set 2021 reprints. So I can't tell you what the Core Set 2021 reprints are in those themes. There are some people who are only sharing the new cards. There are some people who just didn't share all of them. And there are sometimes, right, so Wizards of the Coast updates their spoiler, basically, catalog the day after they come out, where they'll just add cards there that weren't spoiled. And this has just been a nightmare. On top of that, they have the deck list for each one, and they keep adding some to those that they don't talk about. So if I missed a spoiler, I am sorry. Today is the last day of spoilers, but because everything's been confusing, tomorrow I'm doing a video where I talk about all of the new cards. So I'll be just talking about the new cards because maybe I missed one here because it was added into some random post somewhere and it wasn't reported on anywhere. So I'll be talking about those tomorrow, but today I'm going to do the best. I think I got all of them, or most of them, but it looks like they've been, adding more as the days go on, or as the day goes on, and, they sent out this email with, spellcasting as a theme, and then, you go to the website, and then there's, 7 different deck lists, but then, you can't see the cards for half of them, so it is a mess. So I hope in the future they fix it, but now that I'm done with this little rant, I'm sorry, why don't we jump into this? Starting off, we have the Under the Sea theme. So these are themes all around water and just sea creatures. So looking at the deck list, there's serpent and starfish and whales and krakens, and that's pretty much the theme, which isn't super synergistic in comparison to some of the other themes like elves, where there are cards that care about that. Now, there are cards in here that care about it, for instance, Whelming Wave, but why don't we talk about all the non-Core Set 2021 cards. So we have Wishful Merfolk. It's a 2-cost blue creature Merfolk with Defender 3/2. It's a 2-cost, and then you can pay 2, and it loses Defender and becomes a human until end of turn. So it's not wonderful, but for 2, it's not bad, especially in a slower environment like the Jumpstart environment. We have Waterknot, which is really good removal. It taps down a creature, and it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So for 3, you can kind of just get rid of a creature that does something with tapping, but passive ability still works. So, that is a thing, but in this format, most threats are just going to be big creatures. Next, we have Voyage's End. It's a 2-cost blue instant. It says return target creature to its owner's hand, scry 1. For this, it's not awful, but I'd rather pay 1 for it. Just so you guys know, all of these cards, or at least most of them, are being added to Historic when they come to MTG Arena in July. So keep that in mind when you look at these cards, that I am also analyzing them for their viability in Historic. We have Sweep Away. It's a 3-cost blue instant, and it says return target creature to its owner's hand. If that creature is attacking, you may put it on top of its owner's library instead. I like this card, it's a little expensive compared to something like Voyage's End, but if you can manage to get it when it's attacking, it becomes a pretty good spell that's clogging their next draw, and they also can't play it the turn you do this. So overall, I really like this card. Next, we have Octoprophet. It's a very generic 4-cost 3/3 creature octopus, and when it enters the battlefield, scry 2. Very generic, very boring. Same thing with Aegis Turtle. It's just a 0/5 for 1. Next, we have Unstable Obelisk, which is a 3-cost artifact that lets you tap for colorless, so it's ramp. And then you can pay 7 and tap and sacrifice it to destroy target permanent. So whether it's a creature, a planeswalker, a enchantment, or even a land, it is very expensive. You're going to end up having invested 10 mana, but this is something you do towards the end of the game where, I don't really need the mana anymore. Let's just sack it to get the thing out of my way. Most likely this will be targeting a creature to, win you the game, but Yeah, not bad. It's also just like, oh, I'm about to die, sack it. Now, Sigiled Starfish, it is a 2-cost blue 0/3 creature starfish, and you can tap it to scry 1. Nice, consistent little thing. I wish it had a little bit more toughness so that it could be like a really good blocker that could keep blocking, and then, you know, you block, tap, scry. Not awful. This could basically say at the beginning of your upkeep scry 1, but you can do it at any time. So if you have other scry effects, you can like mess around with that. So I actually really like this card. Next, we have Cryptic Serpent. It's a 7-cost creature serpent, 6/5, and it costs 1 less to cast for each instant and sorcery in your graveyard. Nah, doesn't really seem like it fits well in the stack. I get it's a serpent, but there aren't that many instants and sort. I mean, I guess there are, but I'm just not a big fan of it. We have Whelming Wave. It's a 4-cost blue sorcery, and it says return all creatures to their owner's hands except krakens, leviathans, and octopuses and serpents. It for some reason does also bounce Merfolk and some other, you know, starfish and all that, but yeah, it works well in the deck as like a little asymmetrical board wipe. Some of your stuff will still get bounced, but not all of it. For instance, Cryptic Serpent will not get bounced. Next, we have the Smashing theme. That's what they called it. It's about things hitting things, I assume, or just, yeah, I don't know. Why don't we just break down the cards? Hungry Flames is the only one. It's a 3-cost red instant, and it deals 3 damage to target creature and 2 damage to target player planeswalker. Some of the cards are seen in a lot of different decks, and if I've talked about it 2 or 3 times, I'm kind of skipping over them. That's why I'm not talking about the bluffs, because if I did, that would take a really long time and would not be very helpful. Next, we have Above the Clouds, which this is clearly multiple different packs, but they didn't say how they were set up. So here are just all the Above the Cloud cards. So the rares, it's sorted by obviously rarity. And yeah, this one is clearly meant to be a flying deck, which are generally pretty powerful in limited environments. So I'd be pretty happy to get this one. Now, why don't we break down the Jumpstart cards? We have both of these have been seen before. The one on the left, Orniophage, it cares about when you draw cards, putting counters on it, and it has flying, so it's really powerful. And the one on the right just creates 2 flyers, which again is very powerful, so just pretty good cards. Then we have Windstorm Drake. It's a 5-cost blue creature Drake 3/3 with flying, and creatures you control with flying get +1/+0. Not it. Other creatures. I don't know why I didn't say other, but yeah, not bad. It does give you some extra attack, which is nice because a lot of your stuff is probably going to be really low power, but yeah, it's just a nice flyer. And then speaking of nice flyers, Warden of Evos Isle. It's a 3-cost 2/2 creature bird wizard with flying, and creature spells with flying you cast cost 1 less to cast. So this is kind of just like a ramp spell in mono blue for flyers. So, you know, you look at it and you're like, okay, it's kind of the same as it saying once per turn generate a colorless. But if you can cast 2 spells, it's like once per turn generate 2 colorless. So it is a very potent ability, especially in a limited environment. Next, we have Serendib Efreet. It's a 3-cost blue creature Efreet, 3/4 with flying, and at the beginning of your upkeep, it deals 1 damage to you. So it is a 3/4 for 3 that, since it has nicely costed, deals damage to you. I highly dislike this card. Yeah. Wind Reader Sphinx, I'd rather have this one be my rare. It's a 7-cost blue creature Sphinx 3/7 with flying, and when whenever a creature with flying attacks, you may draw a card. So, you know, you get 7 attackers to attack in this deck, essentially. You'll draw 7 cards, and if you don't want 7 cards, you don't have to draw 7 cards. This card is amazing. We have Kira, Great Glass Spinner. It's a 3-cost blue legendary creature. By the way, when I said it was amazing, I know it costs 7, but if you can get it out, it's amazing. Legendary creature Spirit 2/2 with flying, and creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability for the first time each turn, counter that spell or ability. So it's kind of just giving it, including itself, hexproof, but it's kind of like mini hexproof. So I like it. We have Inyes, the Gale Force. It's a 5-cost blue 4/4 legendary creature Djinn, flying, and you can pay 3, one of it either being white or blue, and attacking creatures with flying get +1/+1 until end of turn, so you're just going to get a nice big pump in there that you can repeatedly do. And whenever 3 or more creatures you control with flying attack, each player gains control of a non-land permanent of your choice controlled by the player to the right. So you don't get to choose left or right. You are getting something from your right, and you get to pick something for each player. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick the person on your right's biggest thing. You're going to pick your smallest thing to give to the person on your left, and then you're just going to pick like the things that mess up people the most. For instance, if someone has an artifact that pumps all merfolk by 1 on their side of the board, well, that's really useful to them, but to the person on their right, that's useless. And it not only gets it out of that person's hand, but it's also useless to the other person. So it's essentially a removal spell. Same is true of, some cards can still function, but just aren't very good. If it's something that has an activated ability that requires colored mana, obviously I'm talking about Commander right now, but yeah, this is going to be really cool. I'm probably going to build a Brawl deck in Historic around this maybe, because attacking with 3 or more flying creatures is not hard to do, and being able to swap around control. You can also use this to give your opponents bad things. For instance, 9 Lives, which was printed in Core Set 2021, which has a when this leaves the battlefield you lose the game trigger. You're gonna give them it, and then how it works is whenever they get hit, they put a counter on it. So maybe you give it to them when it has 6 counters on it, and then so you're swinging with 3 flyers. They can't block any of them. They lose on the spot. So this card is really powerful, and I love it. We have rogues, which, they're just rogues. Very generic. We have Nocturnal Feeder, which we saw, and Blast Gasp, which we saw a ton of yesterday, but the one on the left is a new card for some reason, and it's just kind of meh. And then we've Gonti, Lord of Luxury. It's a 4-cost black legendary creature, Aetherborn Rogue, 2/3 with Death Touch. And when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of target opponent's library, exile 1 of them face down, put the rest on the bottom of that player's library in a random order. You may look at and cast that card as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana or mana of any type to cast the spell. So you essentially just steal something from their deck. Very weird, and it can be good, but it can also be awful. If they're running a very synergistic deck, you're probably not going to get anything good with this unless you can somehow find a way to loop it. Next, we have Minotaurs. So, we just have a bunch of Minotaur stuff. Looks like some combat tricks. Not bad. Looking at the new cards, Lightning Visionary. This is a new card for some reason. It's a 2-cost red creature, Minotaur Shaman with Prowess 2/1. I guess they made it new so that they could have a new card for both the Minotaur deck and the Prowess deck, but I don't know. I feel like there could have been a creature that could have fit both those purposes better, but it's fine. We have Herald's Horn, which is a 3-cost artifact, and as it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, you may reveal it and put it into your hand, so it's making things cheaper, and it's essentially card draw. Now, you do have to reveal the card you're playing, but you don't have to. Like, if it's a really good card that, just you don't want to reveal ahead of time, well, then just don't reveal it. But if it's like some random 1/1 that you don't need anymore, just reveal it, get it out of the way, and then you still get to draw for turn. So Herald's Horn is an amazing deck in a tribal deck, or amazing card in a tribal deck. We have Rageblood Shaman, a 3-cost red creature, Minotaur Shaman 2/3 with Trample, and other Minotaur creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Trample, so just a Lord card for Minotaurs, very good. And then Sethron, Herloon General. It's a 5-cost red legendary creature, Minotaur Warrior 4/4. Whenever it or another non-token Minotaur enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/3 red Minotaur creature token. So it's very similar to Ren and Seri, the cat and dog from Core Set 2021, where when you're casting things or having them into the battlefield, you're creating tokens, but yeah, not bad. And then you can pay 3, and Minotaurs you control get +1/+0, gain Menace, and Haste until end of turn. So Menace, that's rough. It's also Haste, because you can theoretically play this on turn 5 if you for some reason have 8 mana in a Rakdos deck, and then pay 3 and it gets Haste and Menace, and yeah, this is no joke and would be a really fun Minotaur deck to play. It could also work really well in a Minotaur deck if you already have one. Again, talking about Commander there. We have Feathered Friends. This is a mono white flyers theme. Yeah. We have Moment of Heroism as a Jumpstart card. It's a 2-cost instant, and it says target creature gets +2/+2 and gains lifelink. Very good, although combat boosts are not as great when there's flyers, because it's a lot harder for people to block. So these are meant more to increase damage, not be used as combat ambush, that's where a lot of value from combat ambushes come from. Then we have Tandem Tactics. Up to 2 target creatures get +1/+2 until end of turn. You gain 2 life. I really don't like this card. You're in total getting +2/+4 for 2 and gaining 2 life. There are better cards, and if you only have one creature that's attacking, that it really matters, then you're losing a ton of value. So this card just feels way too conditional for what you'd want to do with this. Next, we have Take Heart. It's a 1-cost white instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. You gain 1 life for each attacking creature you control. So, not awful. Still, I have the same thoughts about it being a combat ambush. Next, we have Aerial Assault. It's a 3-cost white sorcery, and it says destroy target tapped creature. You gain 1 life for each creature you control flying. This is an amazing card in this deck. You have lots of flyers. It's a kill spell. It works great. Next, we have Healer's Hawk. It's a 1/1 with 1/1 creature, bird, flying lifelinker. Very good card in life gain, in flyers, in like anything. We have Dauntless Onslaught. It's a 3-cost white instant, and it says up to 2 target creatures get +2/+2 until end of turn. Again, +4/+4 for 3. That's not great, especially when you need to have 2 different targets for it. I mean, you don't have to have the second target, but then you lose a lot of value, so you basically need the second target. Next, we have Sky Tether. It's a 1-cost white enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has defender and loses flying. So just a pin down. Aegis of the Heavens. It's a 2-cost white instant. Target creature gets +1/+7 until end of turn. This feels like it would have been a better card in a Walls deck and not a Flyers deck, but it can protect one of your creatures from an attack, I guess. Next, we have Steel Plume Marshal. It's a 5-cost white creature bird soldier, 3/3 with flying, and when it attacks other attacking creatures you control with flying, get +2/+2 until end of turn. So, very good card in a flying deck. It's a brand new card. I could see this making some impact somewhere, maybe historic. Then we have Angel of the Dire Hour. It's a 7-cost white creature angel with flash and flying, 5/4. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, exile all attacking creatures. So the idea is your opponent's attacking you with a bunch of stuff. It's kind of like a Settle the Wreckage. You're just going to exile it all. I like the card. I think it's a good addition in Historic. It costs a lot, and it is in mono white, but it's not awful. Next, we have Archon of Redemption. It's a 5-cost white creature Archon, 3/4, flying, and when it or another creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's power, so you're going to be gaining a decent amount of life with this. And then there's Archon of Justice, which is a 5-cost white 4/4 creature Archon with flying, and then when it dies, exile target permanent, so just a good creature, I guess. It's a 4/4 for 5 with flying. Nah. When it dies, exile target permanent. I guess it's good, but it's not my favorite rare out of them. I would much rather get one of the others, like the new one. Next, we have Pirates. So we only have actual 5 real cards from this. So why don't we break those down? We have Voyage's End, which we talked about earlier. We have Curious Obsession, which is a 1-cost blue enchantment aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. So that's a really powerful ability, but to balance it, at the beginning of your end step, if you didn't attack with this creature, sacrifice Curious Obsession. So you have to keep attacking. Generally what you'll do is you'll put this on a flyer, an unblockable, a protection from everything creature. I guess you can't put on a protection from everything because it has protection from this, but you want to do something along those lines. Next, we have Coastal Piracy. It's a 4-cost blue enchantment. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. It's great to have another one of these effects. We just saw one of those. In Historic, I was just building a Historic Brawl deck, Merfolk, and I was like, how many of these effects are there? But there's one of these that is literally better. It's this card, word for word, but it also has cycling on it, so not bad. So, this isn't awful, but that card is better. Then we have Charted Course. It's a 2-cost blue sorcery. Draw 2 cards, then discard a card unless you attacked with a creature this turn. Good card in general. I like it. Then we have Corsair Captain. It's a 3-cost blue creature human pirate 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, create a treasure. Other pirates you control get +1/+1. And this is a new card. I feel like this was a missed opportunity. I feel like you could have had this be a legendary and you could have had something going here maybe. But yeah, it essentially costs you 1 because you get a treasure and it kind of lets you save that mana for a future turn. So very powerful. In a pirate deck, obviously. It's not that great. Then we have the Legion deck, so this is just generic, combat kind of deck. So let's look at the cards. Knight of the Tusk, we talked about that in a past video. Same thing with Release the Dogs. I just thought I'd mention that they are here. We have Path to Exile, which is an exciting card. One white for an instant, and it says exile target creature. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library. Just note, this is not coming to Historic. I will talk about what cards are not coming to Historic at the end, so just stick around for that. We have Blessed Sanctuary. It's a 5-cost white enchantment. Prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to you and creatures you control. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 white unicorn creature token. So you're going to basically make a unicorn whenever you play anything else. So it's very similar to that Minotaur card, but this one can't be your commander. Next, we have Lana, Selfless Champion, who, how it was spoiled was so unreadable that I had to pull in the M19 version. It's a 6-cost white legendary creature, human knight, 3/3, and when it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token for each non-token creature you control. So you're going to basically make a giant army really quickly. And then sacrifice it. Creatures you control with power less than hers gain indestructible. So she's going to make a big army, and then she can protect your army if someone tries to board wipe it away. So very powerful card in a limited environment. Next, we have Heavily Armored. So this deck's going to care all about +1/+1 counters and, just doing stuff like that. So why don't we look at those cards? We have Divine Arrow, which is a 2-cost white instant. It deals 4 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. There are much better cards, but it's not awful. We have Lightwalker, which is a 2-cost 2/1, and it has flying as long as it has a +1/+1 counter on it. Again, not amazing, but also not awful. I'd rather play Healer's Hawk for 1, that's a 1/1, and then get a 2/2 flying life flanker instead of a 3/2 flyer for an extra mana. Yeah, that one extra power just really isn't worth it, in my opinion. We have Patron of the Valiant. It's a 5-cost white creature angel with flying, and it's a 4/4. And when it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter in each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. So if you have a way to make it enter with a +1/+1 counter on it, it can put one on itself. I like that ability. We have Gird for Battle. It's a 1-cost white sorcery, and put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. So it's nice to get out a bunch of counters on creatures so that when you do something like Patron of the Valiant, it can put counters on more things. We have Duelist Heritage. It's a 3-cost white enchantment. Whenever one or more creatures attack, you may have target attacking creature gain double strike until end of turn. Very powerful in a deck that wants to win with combat. Doubling something's basically power and giving it first strike is insane. We have Cathar's Crusade. It's a 5-cost white enchantment, and it says whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This is an insane card. I'm very happy it got reprinted. It's kind of a pricey card, and it's amazing in Commander. It'll be interesting to see how this works in Historic. I don't believe it's not coming. We'll talk about that at the end. Next, we have Mycaeus, the Lunarch. It's a X and a white for a legendary creature, human cleric 0/0, but not really, because when it enters the battlefield, it enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. You can tap and put a +1/+1 counter on it, which is just a powerful ability. And then you can remove tap and remove a +1/+1 counter from it to put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control, which essentially, if you're paying, say, 4 mana for this, you over time are going to end up putting 3 counters on all creatures for 4 mana. Now, if someone blows this up, you lose a lot of that investment, so it's kind of a trade-off there. I'm not a huge fan of the card, but I also think it has some interesting potential. Alright, so why don't we move on to the next card? Next, the next pack, we have Phyrexian. So this is a theme all around Phyrexians. You can see some, most of them are from Jumpstart, because obviously Phyrexians are not in Core Set 2021, so we have a lot of cards to break down, so why don't we do that? We have Perleus Mirror. It's a 2-cost 1/1 artifact creature mirror, and when it dies, it deals 2 damage to any target. So, they're encouraged not to kill it, but it's just kind of meh. I guess it's a nice little removal spell. Phyrexian Rager is a 3-cost black creature horror, and when it enters the battlefield, you draw a card and lose a life. So it replaces itself. It's a 2/2. It's not awful. Next, we have Phyrexian Debaser. It's a 4-cost black creature carrier and with flying, and you can tap to sacrifice it, and target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. So it's similar to the Mirror, but it's doing -2/-2, and you can activate when you do it, and it's a better creature, but it costs a lot more. I'd actually rather have the Mirror. We have Phyrexian Broodlings. It's a 3-cost black creature minion 2/2. You can pay 1, sacrifice a creature, and put a +1/+1 counter on it. So there are obviously better cards in Magic's history, but this card isn't bad. Next, we have Parasitic Implant. It's a 4-cost black enchantment aura. Enchant creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, enchanted creature's controller sacrifices it, and you create a 1/1. So essentially, you're going to pay 4 and to kill something, but it gets around indestructible, and you'll end up with a 1/1. This kill spell is actually pretty good, but if they can manage to kill the enchantment before that happens, it won't die. So keep that in mind. There's a little bit of a trade-off there. Mirror Sire, it's a 2-cost artifact creature mirror to 1/1, and when it dies, create a 1/1. So you're getting 2/2 for a 2/2 essentially for 2, but not at the same time, which can be nice against board wipes, but I don't expect to see many, if any, in this format. So yeah, not a huge fan. Although it is 2 sacrifice triggers, which is nice. We have Dousing Gloom. It's a 3-cost black instant. It says Dousing Gloom deals 2 damage to target creature, and you gain 2 life. That's pretty pathetic. Okay, we have Rexian Gargantua. It's a 6-cost black creature horror for 4, and when it enters the battlefield, you draw 2 and lose 2. So it's replacing itself and giving you an extra card. Anything in a format where you don't get to really build your deck that draws you cards is good. Next, we have Rexian Reclamation. It's a 1-cost black enchantment, and you can pay 1 and a black, pay 2 life, and return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. This card's insane. Think about it. You can just sacrifice something, pay 2 black and 2 life, get it back. Sacrifice it, pay 2 life. That is a decent cost, but your opponent is not getting rid of anything of yours. It's always coming back, which is kind of annoying, but also really good. We have Entomer Exarch. It's a 4-cost black creature cleric 2/2, and when it enters the battlefield, choose 1. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, or target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-creature from it. That player discards it. We talked about this a little bit, I think, in the last video, but I actually really like the design of this card. And next we have Sherold, whatever, the Whispering one. It's a 7-cost legendary creature Praetor 6/6 with Swamp Walk. At the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's pretty good. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature. So you're gaining a creature advantage and they are losing creatures. So really good combo here. This is a game winner, obviously. It's also a really expensive reprint. It seems like, this is full of just really expensive cards. It doesn't seem like it is full of really expensive cards, and that's been kind of nice to see. Next, we have unicorns as a theme. So these are a bunch of unicorns. Why don't we break down the Jumpstart cards? We have Brightmare, which is a 3-cost white creature unicorn 2/3, and when it enters the battlefield, tap up to 1 target creature. You gain life equal to that creature's power. It does not say tap a creature you control, so you can tap an opponent's huge creature to be able to attack past it and gain life if it's a huge creature. So nice card. We have Blessed Sanctuary, which we talked about earlier. This works really well in a unicorn deck because obviously it's making unicorns. And then we have Emiel the Blessed. It's a 4-cost white legendary creature unicorn 4/4, and you can pay 3 and exile target creature you control, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So it's a 3, you can pay 3 and repeatedly flicker something. So you can save it from removal, which means that this is going to be the first thing to get removed. And then it has another ability. It says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, which would happen every time you flicker it, you may pay green and a white, and if you do, put a +1/+1 counter on it. If it's a unicorn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So in the unicorn deck, it's really good. Even outside of a unicorn deck, this has a lot of interesting application. Flickering something really isn't something we see much in Selesnya, so it's kind of nice to see it there. Next, we have cats. So these are just generic cats. I'm gonna kind of speed through these because they're all kind of generic and boring. But we have Feral Invocation, pay 3, enchantment aura, enchanted creature gets +2/+2. I would say it's garbage, but it has flash, so it's kind of like a combat trick that stays around forever. We have Penumbra Bobcat. It's a 3-cost green creature cat 2/1, and when it dies, create a 2/1. So when it dies, it basically comes back for the one time. It's like a fairer version of Persist or something. Next, we have Feral Prowler. It's a 2-cost green creature cat, and when it dies, draw a card. So you're playing it, you don't really care if it ends up dying. It's a creature, and that's a cat, which helps your deck, and if it dies, boo-hoo, you get another card. I like that kind of design. We have Pouncing Cheetah. It's a 2 or 3 cost green creature cat with flash, 3/2. Nice little attack. They think it's safe to attack with a 1/1. Slam it down. Even if they, if they have a 3/3, you can still slam this down and, say, haha, it's dead. They're both dead. Whatever. It worked as a kill spell. Next, we have Initiate's Companion. Companion. It's a 2 cost green creature cat with Companion. Just kidding. When it deals combat damage to a player, untap target creature or land. So it can kind of ramp you if you can make sure it can hit someone. But yeah, not nearly as devastating as Luris or any of those companions. I know it's looking at it like legitimately, it's not a bad card. It kind of have pseudo vigilance, pseudo ramp. It can be a lot of different things, which I like. Keeper of Fables, it's a 5 cost green creature cat, and whenever one or more non-human creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card, and it's a 4/5. This isn't as good as it looks. You're only drawing 1 card, assuming that you don't have, for some reason, like First Strike and Normal Strike, but whatever. Normally, you're just going to draw 1 card. It's not that great, but it is a cat, so it fits in the theme well. Next, we have Enlarge. It's a 5 cost green sorcery, and target creature gets +7/+7 and gains trample until end of turn. It must be blocked this turn of Fable. Not bad. Nature's Way. Pay 1 and a green sorcery. Target creature you control gains vigilance and trample until end of turn. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Again, not bad. Vigilance and trample allows you to keep it as a blocker, swing through things, and it's a removal spell. So, really good for 2. Then we have Spellcasting, so this is a theme of obviously casting spells. I believe there might be a couple cards that aren't listed here, but they have made it so unclear. These are the ones that were like reported on by other sources, and they just need to fix how they're spoiling things. So the only real new card here, looking at it, by the way, a lot of the cards here, like Young Pyromancer, Hungry Flames, Lightning Visionary, I've talked about Living Elemental, I've talked about all of those. So if you guys want to see my thoughts on those, go check out those other videos. The only one here is Immolating Gyre, which is a new card. Let's see if it's very blurry for some reason. It's a 6 cost red sorcery, and it says it deals X damage to each creature and planeswalker you don't control, where X is the number of instants and sorceries in your graveyard. So for 6, it's a pretty nice asymmetrical board wipe. I think this is a very powerful card. Maybe not quick enough to see any play anywhere, but in Commander, I could totally see this fitting into a lot of decks that care about instants and sorceries. Especially in like a Mizzix deck that's going to reduce the cost of this down to 2. Not bad. And so then we have Spirits. So this is going to care about Spirits. Funnily, there's only 3 of them here, but I'm sure the bigger pack will have more. We have Rattlechain. It's the really only new Jumpstart card here. It's a 2 cost blue creature spirit with flash and flying. And when it enters the battlefield, target spirit you control gains hexproof until end of turn. So if something's about to kill one of your important spirits, you flash this in and save it. And you may cast spirit spells as though they had flash. So you can flash this in to then flash in a bunch of other spirits. It's a very powerful card. Next we have Spooky. I can't really tell you what this theme is other than spooky. Maybe zombies. Next in there we have Dutiful Attendant. It's a 3 cost black creature human warrior 1/2. And when it dies, return another target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. I'm glad this has 3 CMC. Otherwise I'd be worried for Historic with Luris. But yeah, since it's 3, it's kind of useless outside of Jumpstart. I maybe could see someone trying to loop this somehow. Obviously, if you have 2 of them and infinite mana, you can maybe loop something. But if you have infinite mana, you should probably win the game. We have Bone Splinters, 1 black for a sorcery, and as an additional cost to cast it, destroy target or sacrifice a creature, and then it destroys target creature. So you and your opponent sacrifice a creature, your opponent gets their creature destroyed. Yeah. Next, we have Eternal Taskmaster. It's a 2 cost black creature zombie, 2/3. When it enters the battlefield tapped, which is unfortunate, but whenever it attacks, you may pay 3. If you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So just Resurrection for anything that died. Not bad. I actually really like this card. Harvester of Souls, it's a 6 cost creature demon 5/5 with Death Touch, and whenever another non-token creature dies, you may draw a card. These are cards, these can be your creatures, your opponent's creatures. This card's insane, gives you tons of card draw. This is how you're probably going to win the game. Next, we have +1. I assume they mean +1/+1 counters, but the name of it was just +1. So we have some interesting cards here, but really only one that sticks out as new. Obviously, Fertilid I've talked about, and it was just an Ikoria. We have a Branching Evolution. It's a 3-cost green enchantment, and it's a new card. And are you ready for this? If one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature you control, twice that many +1/+1 counters are put on that creature instead. This is a new card, which means you can add it to all of your hardened scales and doubling seasons and all of those to make it even more horrible to play against in Commander. I don't hate playing against +1/+1 counters. They're kind of easy to beat, but, you know, my point is we're seeing another doubling effect as one for +1/+1 counters. Not a huge fan of it. Like, I think it's a powerful card. I'm just not a huge fan of it, especially it going into Historic. So, remember how I talked about a bunch of cards not being in MTG Arena? These are all of the cards from all of the days that are not being in MTG Arena. Now, the ones in yellow are the ones that were added to the list today, or I guess it could have been late yesterday. So we have Flame Tongue Kavu. Do you remember me talking about that? Yeah, neither do I. It's not in any of the decks. We'll have to see. Goblin Lore, I'm going to say the same thing here. Wasn't in any of the decks. Mausoleum Turnkey, again, not in any of the decks. But Path to Exile and Shieldred we saw. But keep in mind, all of these cards are not going to be added to Historic in Arena. They actually won't be added to Arena at all. And they said part of it was balance. Some of it was some cards are hard to implement. And for this set, it's not worth it, essentially, is what they said. So keep that in mind for the future. If you're like, ooh, in Historic, I'm really excited to play Shieldred. I'm going to cheat it out and just cheat a bunch of things out with it. No, you're not, because they're going to replace the card, I assume, with something similar. So I would not be surprised if Lightning Bolt was replaced with Lightning Strike. You know, something along those lines. Either way, guys, I think that's pretty much it, but I really want to talk about their spoiler situation. This was probably the hardest set for me to cover in a very long time, actually probably ever. It's bigger than M21, and they decided they wanted to spoil it in 3 days. It was also more complex than M21 in terms of the fact that spoilers work differently than they ever have before. It also, it's a weird spoiler system, and some spoil everything, some people spoil nothing, basically. So I just wish there was a little bit of consistency with how people spoiled things. They also they add things to the card gallery that aren't already there or that weren't revealed already. So it's just like, oh, I guess these cards are here. I don't know where they go. And yeah, this is pretty crazy. So again, tomorrow I'm going to be doing a video covering all of the new cards because those are some of the most exciting. The ones that are new to Commander, which I'm going to talk about because I don't really play Legacy or Vintage, but yeah, you'll be able to play with those cards in Commander. Also note that I'm going to be leaving a link in the description down below where you can check out the full card gallery on Wizards website because they, I don't know, may have missed something, and then also there'll be a link below where you can check out all of the decks in case, again, I missed something, but I looked through, it's craziness. Either way, if you enjoyed, please hit that like button. Tell me what you think of Jumpstart as a whole in the comments down below, or just see spoilers, and I will see you guys in the next video.